Hello and welcome everyone to the closing night screening of Famous Representation Film Festival. My name is Nico Marzano, I'm the founder and curator of the festival, and it's my pleasure tonight to introduce our final act of this festival. We are about to present the UK premiere of Cocote by Nelson Carlo de los Santos Arias. Over the last 9 days, as some of you or many of you have discovered, we presented 19 films, and they all connected to the general theme of the festival, which this year was landscape. We attempted to explore landscape through different notions, different angles, sound, aesthetics, borders, self-determination. We hope that the festival served as a platform to trigger conversation, to investigate a bit more the interconnection between art, society, and surrounding environment. The idea of talking about landscape wasn't simply the idea of talking about a physical, static agent, but as a dimension, landscape as a dimension that we collectively create. So as a dimension that we should all take care of. And tonight film, you will see for yourself, but tonight film, it's a convulsive and galvanizing experience. Nelson created something absolutely unique. Also helps us as festival to broaden the borders of this festival, because it's a film that within a fictional structure speaks to non-fiction in a very particular way. The soundscape is absolutely incredible. Maybe some of you will recognize from our trailer. We will explore all these in our conversation post-screening with Nelson. I just want to finally thank our partner for tonight, Mubi. Together with Mubi, we are also throwing a party upstairs. You're all welcome. There is also a bit of a news. We are coming back next year for our 4th edition. Will be April. We will work out dates very soon. But I hope that you can join us again, because this festival wants to be a community and a laboratory to try to understand if and how we can create change. Now, please join me in welcoming Nelson Carlo de los Santos Arias.
Well, thank you, and yeah, I'll see you in an hour, 46 minutes.
Thank you, Nelson. Thank you, everyone, for staying. Just quickly housekeeping, we have a mic at the very back of this theater, so we will start a conversation, Nelson and I, then of course we will open up to you all. And if you can wait for the mic so that we can facilitate the recording. And Nelson, thanks for being with us, for being here with Frames Representation. Will come, as no surprise for you that I would like to start from the element and aspect of nature and landscape in your film. While researching and reading about your work and your practice as a filmmaker, I read about some reference to romanticism, and to the idea that the immensity of nature makes us realize how small we are as human beings. We belong to landscape, and in your film there's that scene where Alberto talks to his sister, and we start from afar, very afar, and we get closer and closer. I would like to hear from you how nature and landscape, this idea of immensity, affected the genesis of your project.
Well, thank you for having me. I don't know. I mean, I don't think I don't think that much about landscaping. I only think that I'm very close to the idea of humans. So that's what I'm interested in, and of course, I mean, people think that yeah. I remember that now, why I said that. Because he asked me, like, we're going to start the conversation with this. And I was like, why did I say that? And
were you lying?
Now I remember. I was thinking that there is this thing in narrative films, like especially when you're coming from you know, like more the more the mode of representation, the institutionalized mode of representation, what I call the hegemonic type of cinema, and when they have so many roles, right? And I think it's a sacrilege when you are making a film, a narrative film, and you cut or you change the point of view of the main character. And I think when I was talking about romanticism in that sense, I was referring to that, the possibility of also to that, like that in I like the principle of romanticism. I actually don't like painting that much, but it's something that I'm not very interested in. But I think I really like this principle, and I think it was easier for me to think the point of view in a narrative film as a device and something that belongs to a universe, you know. So I think that's why I was like thinking about that. I'm actually, you know, like it was something like that, I think. Yeah.
In relation to, I think it would be interesting to understand a bit more, starting from the title, no? Cocote, cocote is a word that in Spanish really can be quite obscure, no? Even for Latin American people, and it's a word that belongs to the culture of your country.
Yeah.
And I found that this decision of using Cocote as title of a film that doesn't want to expose, doesn't want to be descriptive, but it's a film that wants to, you know, be mysterious, but like, you know, is this the reason why you use also this word that is completely obscure in a way?
No.
Like, if you can explain a bit the meaning of the word for all of us.
Two things.
Yeah.
The first thing is the simple one that cocote is it's a word that referred neck to, but in Spanish we have different word for names, and if we're referring the neck to a human being, it will be cuello. And if we're referring the neck of an animal, it will be cogote with a G, cogote, o pescuezo, right? So this is in the Dominican Spanish, we will say cocote. But what is interesting for me, that word was like, as you say, it's like how a word also have hidden different type of meaning. And what is interesting for me in that word is that every time we say cocote to refer to a human being, there is a violence that is tacit, that is implicit there, that it's a neck that is going to break. In a broad sense of the idea of translating something, I think that, we all know that most of our films, especially when we do like Arthur cinema, we're gonna end in Europe and to show our films, you know, and probably the funds are gonna come from Europe, and so there is a problem there, and but at the same time, when you're not, I mean, most of the filmmakers in Latin America will be part of the middle and upper class, you know, and what happened with us that not coming from those classes, and what happened to us that are not we're not emulating Hollywood films. That is the films that, like mediocre films that are copying, is the copy of a copy and the copy of a copy eternally. So the only thing that we have is just like these funds, right? So what it means is translation somehow. So what is it that I'm translating from the culture, from my culture, and what is what those decisions become like actually like a problem. And I remember this famous festival that actually wanted it to cut my film to be able to get to those things, and it was, for me, it was like it was insane. But then, like, investigating more, you find out that there is like this voice that are trying to direct how you need to make films and how it is the images. And it's a very long conversation that happens in the 60s and the 70s that from my hypothesis must be that, of course, after all this you know, this fashion of all these dictatorships supported by the United States in our country, those idea was interrupted. Culturally speaking, but also like literally interrupted by killing the artist, you know? So those ideas for me hasn't developed that much and somehow. So
the title is a way to claiming identity.
Yeah, and I think like, yeah, no, I mean, the problem with Caribbean, and I don't think, I mean, it's impossible to talk about identity in the way that we understand identity, because from the anthropological Western position, somehow identity is rooted into a land. So how can we start talking about that in the Caribbean, for example, where the people from that land was killed, you know, and there's no reminiscences. So we are black, we are Africans, we are Spanish, Portuguese, English. I mean, the Caribbean is a crazy region, you know.
In these terms, I love the fact that you try to use the word mulatto filmmaking.
Claro. Yeah, because like.
Claro que sí.
I mean, there's no other way to. At least, I mean, one of the problems that we have in the Caribbean is the impossibility to access to other part of the Caribbean, that, you know, el francófono, like the part of the French, the English part, basically because we need visa. We ask visa to all of us because the Caribbean still have, I mean, the empires still have colonies there, you know, still. So we need a Schengen visa to go there, or we need the U.S. visa to go there, and then we know all that happened with the blog in Cuba, and so Haiti, Dominicana, Jamaica, there's the worst passports. So we cannot have a dialogue between us. So I can talk about the Spanish part of the Caribbean.
Yes.
So in that sense, the level of mix, it's la idea the idea of the mulatto, not only as a political and racial concept, it has to be also an aesthetic, and it's also an experience. There's no other reason to access to the culture by actually not being hybrid, by not being, and this is something that has been for a long time. I mean, it's the oldest part of what people say the new, you know, the new world, or what is horrible in English, they say the what is it, like the indie news, what is it, like the new indies, what is the word in English for the Caribbean? West Indies. Like, diablo, una locura eso, but well, you know, so, you know, but it's the old part of the whole continent, even though United States think that North America is you know, a separate country, no, a separate continent. It is not. I mean, it's the whole continent, and you know, and so it's impossible to access to that if we don't actually think the mulatto of in every aspect of how we produce knowledge or how we produce whatever culture.
If we stay for a bit longer within, you know, the idea of
there was the new West Indies. No, West Indies is okay. It's not that bad.
If we keep saying on the idea of, you know, your culture, your religion, what really intrigued me and fascinated me when I saw your film for the first time in Locarno was the idea that when you were shooting where you shooted the rituals, no? Yeah. It felt almost like a sort of documentary mode. I would like to know more. I mean, were you just there inside with a crew, yourself, one person? Because you rendered, like, you know, a sense of, as we said at the beginning in your introduction, this is a drama, a non-fiction that speaks to non-fiction. But that moment of shooting the rituals, for me, was the closest part to non-fiction. If you can tell us a bit more about this process.
Yeah, I mean, like, it has to be also. I mean, I can intellectualize all the actions, all the decisions that I can. But for real, it's like, I mean, the real thing is that I am filming since the first film, you know, in this way. Like I come from experimental films. I come from essay films that I'm by myself. So I've been investigating a lot the problem of me in the camera and the subject that is being filmed. and how this device represent. So in that sense, the problem with Cocote was that for the first, okay, I need money to make this film. So the structure of production that these funds, established, you have to have this mode of production. You have to have a producer. You have to give you the rights to the producer. So all this paraphernalia of the cinema that I have so many problems with, if you want to have their money, you have to have that. So my problem was the negotiation, that it was a negotiation not only, yes, it was a negotiation. How am I going to be able to keep filming how I am? I mean, no way I can do a film by myself, just me and my camera like Santa Teresa, the film before, with these funds, right? So how can I keep doing that? Because I believe in that there has to be that relationship. So like, for example, in the rituals, there cannot be a DP filming that. No, that's my relation. This is the community that I know since I'm 14. Okay. So it has to be me. It has to be me. It cannot be anybody there, because it is me that is interpreting all this years in the relationship that we have, and also I am the Dominican there, Yes. So in that sense, we had to. So this shooting plan had to be modified. So when I designed the shooting plan, I have to fill this thing. So from the other reason has to be with, it is the first time I have money. I felt that it was very unethical if I just go, and I know I can, because they know me. I can go with the camera by myself with no crew and shoot like a real funeral, a real novena, una novena, right? For those that, I know this is not a Catholic country, but a novena is actually what is happening there. It's 9 days of mourning to this thing, which is a Catholic tradition. It's not an African tradition. So so I had to organize, and this is what is very beautiful in that sense. These mode of productions that we have, that this film schools tells you what to do, and the book of
rules.
Yeah, what is the name of the guy that says in 10 minutes you have to introduce all, and then the 15 minutes have to be a twist. I mean, I'm dead there, right? I don't know, Simon something, right? This stupid guy from Los Angeles. But I mean, like, what is interesting is that if I have to have a negotiation with Juberbi and all these people from Villamella, in the moment I need to actually include these people into my own process of representation, or to represent them, things are going to change. Yeah. So in the moment they say, oh, so how do you do this and whatever, you know what, when you have to film someone and you actually want to have an ethical reason how we are going to do this, and we is not me filming you, things are going to change because they're not coming from cinema. Yeah. So in that sense, I had to rechange everything. So what I did basically was I know that one day of La Novena, it's divided in 5 parts, what they call 5 mysteries. Yeah. So each mystery is like 2.5 hours, right? So what I did is I divided it in 5 days, and I start shooting. You say action at 2:30 p.m. and it will end at 5 p.m. for example, right? And I put I use that house as a musical studio. Like I put a lot of microphone there, and I divide, and I know the division between the spaces. There's a room where the women cry, and there's the other room where the altar are. And these people here trying to interrupt the possessions that could be there. Why? Because they are opening the doors. This is the cosmovision, and this is the African part. When you do that, when you are saying goodbye to a dead person, you are open the door of the death, right? So you don't know what is the soul that is going to possess the other person. It's not protected by any saint, and it's not protected by God. So that's why they have to run and check who is the person, who is this soul that is that is like trying to, introduce to your being, right?
And in relation to this, you use only non-professional actors, or also, or it's a mix of it? And what's the reasons behind?
No,
like, you know,
it's a mix. It's a mix. And actually, I didn't want to work with actors because, no, I mean, like, there's no point in actor there. And in the beginning of my project, for me, there was no point of an actor there because I am working with a community that is already from an invisible country that is already invisible within the country.
Yeah.
So I cannot, like how I can. So I start this very crazy process by myself, me and my notebook, like traveling to a lot of communities and do like these very long castings. I saw so many people, you don't understand. And I would get addicted to see you. I mean, I would say, oh man, I'm gonna do another film. I forget about Cocote, I said, of course, it's like, you at media, you're like, Papa, if you want your money, you have to get to this stage. So I have to, but I stayed a long time. But it was interesting because this is also how I bring the documentary knowledge. I mean,
yes.
by engaging and having a conversation with all the people that I saw, that was going to actually alterate the script itself, because it's not a script and the arrogancy of the script that goes to a place and impose the aesthetic, So it was, but then I find out that I had a lot of women, like the women of all this community, they were amazing, but the men, they were horrible.
Which way?
It's like horrible. Like they didn't talk. They didn't say anything. They were just like there, like just standing, like being supported by the women. That was, because it's a very matriarchal inside of the patriarchal. This is in the way that most of the countryside is actually, organized. No, it's the men. They're like, what are you doing there? Like nothing. They're just there. They have like 40 kids. They're just stupid men that's been like drinking. So I said, okay, I don't have Alberto.
Okay.
So I said, okay, maybe I have to give an opportunity to the actors of the Dominican of my country, right? So I said, okay, cool, I'm gonna do that. And then I said, oh, but I'm not gonna deal with this famous people, right? No. So I said, okay, I'm gonna work. Instead, I'm gonna go to los barrios and see like the street theaters, and I saw all these people. So I bring these people that went to theater school, like Alberto, Judith, that is the one that do Karina, the younger sister, and I do casting. But I do a very because I don't know how to do a casting. So basically, when I like someone, I work for them for 4 hours. They didn't know what to think. Like, who is this guy? So I mixed these things, and then the whole process of bringing them to this community, and this community, actually get in touch to theater. It was a very long process of almost 3 months, and rehearsing like 3 weeks per day, and we saw films and show them all the films that I like, and I introduced myself also. It was not only work, it was talking about cinema, talking about also like what do they think, because I wanted like the shepherd female is a shepherd film for sure, yeah. and for in the real life, and the other, so I needed to we needed to create this dialogue. So it was a long process because I cannot put words in their mouth.
I would like to, one thing that really struck me when I saw it is also the use of sound,
yeah.
in your film. The narrative, or the lack of narrative in your film, is also supported by and filled by the soundscape. You worked with an Argentinian guy, Noel. Mm-hmm. You did a fantastic job on that. I would like to hear from you how is the narrative, at the soundscape went hand in hand, or did you find the sound afterwards? If you can tell us.
No, I've been doing I do my sound. I mean, Noel record the thing, but then I do the sound design. Yep. Again, comes from this tradition that I have of personal films in which I mean, I want to make cinema because I like music, I like it to write, and it was something that I could combine all these things, all these skills, and it was from that moment it was a very selfish decision to make cinema because I can actually play music there, and I can write there, and I can use photography there, and I like theater in that moment. Not anymore. No, maybe but you, but I think like if we are putting if we're putting in crisis the hegemonic way of making cinema, perhaps, and this is something that I've been thinking for a long time, perhaps this dichotomy between image and sound, which is not a democratic dichotomy, it's actually it's a dictatorship by the image towards the sound. Perhaps if we change these things, perhaps we can create fresh ideas in the cinema. Yeah. So this is my. Sometimes I yes, most of the time I think in sound first, and I think also being Dominican and the relationship that I have with the music, maybe it's because of that, and then I intellectualize it, and then because you have. Yeah, because people ask you that question, you need to know these things, why you do that, and this is interesting but it's interesting and then it's not very interesting because you don't want to intellectualize everything, too much, yeah. Because then you're fake, so you have to have a balance in these things.
Let's have a balance now and ask if anyone has a question, yeah?
Okay, let's go to the party. Thank you.
Party, just upstairs.
Yeah.
There's some there at the back.
Hi. So my question goes back to the casting process and the ritual part of the film. And it's about the level of informed consentment from the participants, because obviously they knew they were going to be taking part in a film where their beliefs would be portrayed. Were they aware of how those beliefs will be portrayed and what other images, like the exorcism or the cockerel, would be juxtaposed against what may be genuine beliefs for them?
Yeah, okay. So you mean like the television? You mean the television spots there?
It's whether they were aware of.
Well, they're
so
news.
They knew they were going to be in a film.
Yeah.
Where their religious beliefs would be portrayed. But were they aware of the tone in which those would be presented?
Okay, so I don't. But you mean like the rituals or the TV spots?
The rituals.
The rituals.
Yeah.
I don't know what tones you think you are. I mean, that's the tone of the rituals. Like, I don't think. I mean, this question happened. I mean, I think this is a very Anglo-Saxon way of thinking things.
Don't get defensive.
No, but it's interesting because I was in New
Dominican.
York. No, but I was in New York, and also this correctness, also like trying to this thing about, that's not. I mean, this. Let me tell you something. Like, this is something that this community, these rituals that happen there, which are not rituals, they are rezos. And like the idea of just saying rituals is for me, to you, because you don't speak Spanish, I can say, because they're not rituals, son los rezos, son las novenas. And they are, it's a tradition that Catholicism has, and this is in the way that for centuries and centuries people have been mourning their deads, right? So that's for one hand. And the other hand is like, I have two ways to represent these things, right? Everybody there, as I said before, I don't feel ethical just going to a real one and take the images and then put it in my film. So everybody there that was cast, and everybody was paid, and everybody signed a contract there. So from that moment in capitalism, somehow this is a legal contract that we have, and that they are serving the film in that sense. So the ethical part of me as a director, how am I going to represent part of my country and something that I grew up with. How do I represent my own life, my own country? It is something that I have to dialogue with them. So in the moment that I say, okay, you know what, this is a fiction, right? I say action, cut, action again. Okay, now you go there, and then you start crying, and then I say, okay, cut. So this is something that I am actually really, really manipulating, and I'm very, very, very. So the only way that I could do something that this question that you're saying, that is also the question that I said to myself. I say, okay, how do I actually let these people, right, to be part of, or they can be themselves in that time. Also, the signification of that is very old, because we have lloronas. Y las lloronas son the women that cried in funerals that also come in Italy and the whole Catholic. So you pay people to go to the funerals to cry.
To make it dramatic.
They're very aware of the signification of suffering, of the death, you know. So this is all these elements that I have is the elements that I for somehow I have to deal with, and this is what happens there in the screen, and it is me who is in the camera, so I'm full responsible of these images, because no one there's no the DP or anybody doing camera. It's just me doing the camera. So it is me that is creating a relationship with and engaging with the subject that has been filmed. And then it's going to get, go to the editing, which is only me who's editing also. So I believe that this is the best I can do in the relationship, me as a filmmaker, to represent, and I believe that I include them in this representation. Thank you.
Yeah, at the back, yeah.
Hi. You're switching between 16 and digital camera, I believe. Is there a reason or something that motivated this change between these two formats?
Yes. This is a very... No, just kidding. What is it? Maybe this is a very narrative question. No. No, I've been using different formats like since day one, right? And of course, I think like if you think in cinema and we are doing narrative films, and this relationship between form and content, and any formal or any aesthetic decision has to serve the narrative. In that sense, these decisions that you see in the film are arbitrary, perhaps, because they don't have anything to do with the plot. It has to do with the film. It has to do with political and aesthetics that I propose in my own language. And it has to do with this. When I go and film. In the beginning, I didn't have, but from beginning, no, like before Cocote, like Santa Teresa, La Carreta, all the films before, I had to do film with the elements that I have, and I do believe that perhaps it was in my mind that's what the resources that I need I needed. I had a mini DV camera, I had a Super 8 camera, I had a. I have all these different elements that are going to actually, and then I start being conscious of this mixings of formats, and it becomes kind of my aesthetic somehow. That there's other films that they don't have it there, but I wanted to, because I come from experimental films, and experimental film has something that is very interesting. Sometimes narrative films forget is the conversation of technology. And the media itself somehow, and it is something that it is part of me because it's part of my education, and I wanted to try I wanted to try the problem of those, for example, those black and whites there, like just to say something. But if I'm talking about hybrid films and the idea of mulatto not only as a racial and political study, but also as a experiential and aesthetic, decision. I know that the formats and the colors are the first things that you see as an audience, but someone that is coming from cinema is going to see that this germ of this, ¿cómo se dice? Un germen híbrido. Germen, como un virus, como a hybrid virus. It's already in the way that how makes also different type of how the strategy of acting as strategy, or in the way that I decide that I'm like it makes sometimes landscape in films with a thriller maybe, so so in that sense the whole film is like this. The whole film is like
because you move from a fictional mode to non-fictional to genre.
Yeah.
Then use footage almost as a essay documentary. So you use different sort of languages.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one thing that I loved about the film. It for me represents fully the curatorial spirit of this festival. Is that you were exploring different languages to tell the story of your community.
Yeah, but that's the thing. In the moment that I intellectualize that, I'm gonna be fake, So that I don't want to think about these things,
Let's not think about
it is in the way that I approach cinema, because I'm a cinephilia, I'm muy cinéfilo, so I watch all kind of films, so for somehow it's in my mind itself, maybe you can, I go to a topic to another topic, and I think it's in the way that also I do films,
This also speaks to the political dimension of your work, because if you think in terms of religion, in terms of class, you represent also conflicts religiously. We see Catholicism, we see West Africa rituals.
Yeah.
In terms of class, you see the rich, the servant, people. Alberto is the incarnation of a conflict.
Yeah.
So I mean, what I love about political cinema that never needs to be propagandistic, and your film is never propagandistic, offers different aspects.
Yes.
So there is no need to intellectualize, but it's just I think it's important to.
And I think the society is the society, in the way that displays, at least in Santo Domingo, and I think in other countries too. It's very it is like that, why do I take religion somehow? Because I am in the country where perhaps the own rhetoric is there's not, what is the tools that we have to analyze things is through academia, through anthropological texts or sociological texts. What happened when you are in a society that those texts are not, that those archives, there's no many archives. There are not a lot of texts that are talking about identities, I'm not a social science, I'm a filmmaker, but at the same time, I need those social scientists, social, to be able to develop a concept or not. So this is and this is very interesting, because this is the first, this is the first film that I do in the Dominican Republic, and the way that I'm going to start investigating, and it's through academia. This is what I know. Because this is what in the university taught you. So when I go there, I say, okay, there's nothing. There's no books. There's no theoreticians there. There's no anthropological actually of course there's descriptions. There are. I'm not saying that they're not, but I mean a contemporary Dominican analysis, how we can find here in the UK or in the United States or in Argentina or in Mexico, where we are analyzing contemporary society, the contemporary Dominican society. I couldn't have those. I couldn't find those tools. So for me it was interesting to grab religion, because religion somehow are those institutions that produce morality and what is good and what is wrong, and from that you can start analyzing a whole society somehow. So that's and yeah.
Let's see if there is more. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, it was fascinating to watch this film, or to experience it, actually. And just now, I was trying to find some kind of pivot where to come in. And do you know the work of Michael Tossig?
No.
Well, you should look into it, because a lot of things you talked about, like hybridity and collage, bricolage. I was also thinking earlier of anthropophagia and tropicalismo, tropicalia. So after this film, I couldn't go to a festival of ethnographic film. This is like post-ethnographic. So it's like a kind of matrix of how to make films about the other, or other cultures that we are not familiar with.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I don't know. No, but it's interesting because I never studied anthropology or ethnography, but when in Locarno, they also say that, and you know, when they give you a prize, they say why they give you a prize. So they say something like, but I haven't seen a lot of ethnographic films or anthropological film, but they also said that this film is like, it's kind of reinventing anthropological films, but they are academics, you know, like I've never, it was never my intention somehow, like to do this, you know. I'd
say more like deconstructing.
Deconstructive, maybe, yeah. And the idea of deconstructing has been always, you know, like a
preoccupation for him.
Yeah, yeah. And I think also Santa Teresa is, people also, you know, refer, when Santa Teresa did it in Mexico, which is, you know, I'm not a, well, they will say the young Mexican director Nelson Carlo with this new film. No, but yeah, but I think that, mira, there's this movement that happened in Colombia that is very interesting. And I remember I studied in a school in Latin America that they're supposed to be really good, no? But we never saw Latin American films that much. It's, you know, especially Buenos Aires. Buenos Aires has many things that, you know, well, it's okay. But the thing is that it's important. It was amazing that how I couldn't actually visit those ideas in the Latin American, you know, avant-garde, that they were rethinking identity, they were rethinking ethnography, they were rethinking all these things from a very post-colonial position. I couldn't have access to that because they show Citizen Kane like 25 times per day, you know, and they were so amazed by, you know, the invention of El Plano Secuencia. So, so I had to do my own investigation, and I think what you're saying is, I think it has to do with this position that a Colombian group of people in Cali, Luis Ospinas y Caicedo, they were the first people that they started to, they came with this concept that is porno miseria, porno misery, and they were the first people that they start to negotiate and actually with the subject that has been filmed, because El Cinema Novo was not doing that somehow. It was the freedom of the decolonization of the filmmaker itself, but it was not taken somehow. It was more by liberating myself as a third world artist. I am being more ethical to represent my own country. But the Colombian by the late 70s, they twist this thing in terms of like, okay, we need to include them and how actually we are going to do this scene, for example. So I think, yeah, and I think by including this, you're going to break not anthropological films, but fiction and, you know, documentaries. In the moment that you ask, like, okay, how do you feel represented here or not? And in this conversation, I think things are gonna change because yeah, they only know how they want to be seen, but they don't know about cinema, you know. So I think, yeah, it has to be with that maybe. No, de nada.
Do we have a... Yes, let's go first, yeah, in the center, and then we come back here.
Hi, sort of like beyond the negotiation that you have with the subjects that are being represented, I was just wondering, how did you think about the relationship between your film and the audience? Because in this case, like obviously we're still in a very predominantly white and Western audience, and I was wondering, since sort of like the politics of representation have very little bearings on the sort of institutional structures that you work and operate within, how is it that you are thinking of making a film that doesn't necessarily fetishize or commodify these experiences that are so dear to you to such a Western audience, and yeah, sort of like the strategies behind that?
Well, I'm young. Like, I mean, in terms of like, I haven't done many films, and the films that I did before, I mean, 2 films before went to a lot of festivals. I didn't go. This is the first time I'm actually going to. So, to show the film and like to talk about the audience, and I was very naive somehow because I think that I mean, my audience were Dominicans. I actually did this film to be able to show it in the Dominican Republic, and the discussion is with that audience. And the problem the problems that we have, it has to be discussed to us. And I haven't been able to have that opportunity somehow because they put the film they just put it to, you know, like for only several weeks, and we didn't have any money to actually get to the audience. So I can tell you, so what you're saying, theoretically speaking, I can answer, but pragmatically speaking, ¿cómo se dice? Through my experience right now, this is the first time that I am experiencing this. Like, I did this film for a Dominican audience, and every time, actually, let me tell you that which is really, when I show, and the few people that went there, the only few people that went there, I realized that I have done a more popular film, una película popular.
Popular.
Yeah. No, pero no popular.
More commercial, almost.
No. Like when we say it in Spanish, popular also means to the masses, no? A la masa. I thought, for somehow I was afraid that putting all this very strong Arthur maybe, or this
references,
whatever that I have in my film, that I thought that it was not gonna engage with the masses, with the
less accessible.
It was less accessible, but it wasn't, and that was a very beautiful discovery. Yet I couldn't have the money to get access to because, and somehow I experienced what Glauber Rocha experienced somehow, when he was making films in Brazil. There was very, very, very intense films. The left, that always have this patriarchal or
attitude,
position, say, patriarchal, no, como fatherless, como paternal, no, like they become the father of the society, and they decide what the poor people can understand or not. So, paternalist, yes, paternalist. And it was interesting, when Glauber Rocha died, actually the people who were in the street was all the people from La Favela, because they were the one who actually understand the rituals, not the middle class, or not the upper middle class or the high class. Because in the Dominican Republic, for example, the racism there that exists, it has to do with Haiti. The reference is Haiti. And so from the high class, they criticize this film because I'm pro-Haiti. And I'm putting Haiti tradition to what is Dominican. But the Dominicans, the more popular, from the popular classes, they understand very well that this is for the first time, they felt very like represented. They've never seen Dominicans represented in the but then the film is very exotic in Europe, and then I find out how much, you know, like what are the films that are more successful, and it breaks my heart. So it's a question that I have to. This is going to be. I have to.
Part
I
of
don't
your
know.
research.
Yeah, I need to deal with this. And you know, but I feel good because I lied to the fans. Because if you read the script of this film, this is a classical, you know, like very classical. They never imagined that the Cocote was gonna be like that. So when they saw Ibermedia, World Cinema Film in Berlinale, and all these things, they were like, whoa, okay. But because if you read the script, so I lied to them. I made a script that it was very classical, you know, it's kind of a Western or a thriller, you know. When they saw this film, they were like, okay, this is not what it's written. So I took their money, yeah.
It was out anyway at that point.
Yeah, and I'm here in London.
You've answered my question already.
And Juber is in New York. Like the woman from the river, she's in New York right now showing the film. She'd never been in the United States, so she's very happy.
Nice.
I said, please don't stay. She said, no, we are gonna stay. No, don't stay, Juber. You have to come back, otherwise they won't. Just kidding, okay.
You answered it already. I just wanted to know what the reception was like in Dominican Republic, but you said all that already. So.
Oh.
But
I can tell you more.
No, because I know Dominican Republic do a lot of very genre type films, very populist films.
Oh, you're so diplomat.
And so this must have really stood out as something quite different.
No, yeah. No, but it was interesting. You know, I can tell you something else. That film, we have a problem. In 1965, United States occupied Dominican Republic. It was the biggest occupation of the U.S. in the Dominican Republic. So one of the characteristics that I've seen in my country of the U.S. imperialism was to kill the thinkers, to put a dictatorship, and create an aristocrat that is pro-United States. Just to tell you that I have an accent speaking English, right? Most of the people that are coming from the upper classes, you will think that they're from the United States. They don't have any accent. Because the private schools, they're all in English. The good schools, when I was studying, there was a few schools that still were good in Spanish. So that was Cocote. By showing that I and talking to an audience, somehow we start the problem of how we are so colonized aesthetically and economically and political by the United States in Dominican Republic. But also, and something that we haven't talked about, why I decided to choose the Protestant church. The Protestant church, after 1965, any country, a big country that is colonizing or occupied in a small country, will also bring with their churches. So the Jehovah's Witnesses, the Mormons, and all these United States that represent the more reactionary part of the states, we're gonna go in this time where the states were supporting all the dictatorship in Central America and the Caribbean and South America. They also brought their churches. And this is very, 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 very dangerous, because this is for the first time, and that's perhaps in Cocote what is important, especially in a country like Brazil, where the Protestant churches are in power in terms of, like, they are in the Senate, en el Senado, ¿no? En la Cámara de Diputados. So, yeah, in the Senate. And control the media, and all these things. So, because I do believe it's an extended arm of capitalism and domination within the region. So the main opposition that what is the principle? The principle of the Protestant church was going to the masses. You know, it was this thing about poor people getting into communities, supporting each other, you know, and this principle, this idea that is also in these churches were impregnated in our popular classes. So, including my aunts and including, because I'm coming from that class, and so the main opposition that we will have with the African traditions, all countries, because sadly the Caribbean do not have any there's no indigenous people alive right now because they were all killed. But los guaraní in el Brazil, or you know, in all this part of South America, they still are. The main opposition that they will have with the traditions of both from the African beliefs of the indigenous beliefs is going to be the Protestant church. So they're going to be members of a family that is going to, you know. So for me, it was very interesting to see Dominicans becoming like Alberto, you know, like and the idea of dance and singing was satanized. So this is una prolongación, ¿cómo se dice prolongación? Una prolongation or extension of what is Satan is what is black. But black not only as a color of skin, black as something that is the opposition of what the main, you know, narrative says what it is.
Yeah.
Y es increíble. This is incredible because the fight is within these classes. And that's why I choose the Protestant church. And perhaps Cocote is one of the few, because this is too new, we don't have the vocabulary to talk about it. We don't know how to talk about these issues yet because it's too soon in our history. So Cocote is kind of the first, and for many things, for me, it's an attempt to start a conversation or investigation.
And talking about attempts, we talked a lot about attempts also during our introduction, start a conversation. I just want to thank Nelson so much and thank all of you for your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.